Welcome to Speaking Cinema, serious movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you from under the 800-pound monkey that is Hollywood, California. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Speaking Cinema. Listen to us on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes. I am your local arcade manager, Mr. Jibber Jabber. With me today is a dude who collects quarters on Fridays, Kevin.
How y'all doing? Blue collar.
That's your blue collar Kevin voice?
Yes.
Okay. This week on the Jibber Jabber, in the cutthroat world of Donkey Kong, only one can rule. 2007's The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters, our first documentary here on the Jibber Jabber.
It's about time. Can't wait to talk about some documentaries.
Directed and conceived by Seth Gordon, the film chronicles the rivalry between hot sauce magnate Billy Mitchell, regarded as the best player of the classic arcade games on the planet, including Donkey Kong, and Steve Wiebe, a lowly schoolteacher from Redmond, Washington, as they pursue the world record high score on the classic arcade game, Donkey Kong. Hot sauce magnate, rapid fire, go! Frank's hot sauce.
Good.
Crystal.
Never had it.
Tapatio.
Great.
Tears of Fire.
Fantastic.
Texas Pete's hot sauce.
Excellent.
Sriracha.
Overrated.
Ooh, Cholula.
Good.
Tabasco.
Classic.
Totally classic.
Yeah.
Favorite Tabasco flavor color? I'm gonna have to go with classic. Just a classic red.
I think classic. Chipotle is too smoky.
Too smoky. I agree with you. Not enough. Sweeten it out or give it some other things. It's a little smoky, a little bitter. Not like
it doesn't
that.
really taste like Chipotle. It just tastes like smoke.
Mm-hmm. Also, just as a side note, in one of our many tangents that we'll get to as the episode unfolds, I love hot sauce. Kev, you know this about me.
I love hot sauce too.
Right, but you know this about me.
Yeah.
I want to talk about me. I hate, and we'll talk about you in a minute. I hate it when they put hot sauce on a potato chip and like the powder, and they call it like, oh, it's sriracha flavor. It's like sriracha's not a powder, bro.
Yeah.
Intrinsically, it's not a powder. Fuck off.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. Oh, I wanted your opinion on that.
No, I agree. It tastes fake. It's nothing but heat. There's no flavor to it.
God damn it. Now I'm in a bad mood. Originally conceived as a much broader documentary about competitive gaming, it wasn't until late into production that Gordon and his team discovered the rivalry between Mitchell and Wiebe. They decided to refocus the entire film on them. By the end of production, over 300 hours of footage had been shot. Arcade rapid fire, go! Time Crisis.
Time Crisis 2 fun, all the other ones, a little too much things going on. Shields and shit, I don't need that.
Mortal Kombat.
2 is my favorite.
2 is your favorite? I'm gonna go with...
I do like 3 though.
I'm gonna go with 2 as well.
Yep. 2 is where it really took off.
But, you can't really beat 1 either. 1 was pretty...
One's a classic.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time.
Fantastic. That game is... I probably could have bought a house on the quarters. I pumped into that game.
Fun, but literally unbeatable.
I mean, it's designed to take your quarters.
Final Fight.
Great.
The best.
Fun.
Double Dragon.
Good time. Battletoads and Double Dragon, even better.
Area 51.
Cool in its time, has not held up well.
I agree completely. The Simpsons arcade game.
So good.
The best.
Still great.
Cruising USA.
Also has not held up. I remember the only thing I liked about it was driving a school bus and hitting deer. That was my favorite thing.
I'm just going to say that I prefer San Francisco Rush.
Oh my God, yes.
Critics favored this film and ended up on many best of year lists, including Variety Empire and the AV Club. It also did well in its limited theatrical run, making $51,000 in its opening weekend, even though it was only in 5 theaters.
That is impressive.
This film is physically available on DVD only, no Blu-ray, and digital copies and rentals do not also exist from what we could find out. Pretty lame there, guys. Fucking, let's figure this out.
Let's figure it out.
As of this recording, you can stream it on Hulu Plus, though.
Yep.
It has been on Netflix, so, it's not like this company's out of business, whoever owns the rights, you know what I mean? Someone has it. Someone can do something with it.
It's a popular film.
But what? Put it on Blu-ray. I'm probably going to watch it on Hulu Plus. We got that.
Most likely.
Kev, have you heard of this movie?
Yes.
I have also heard of it. Kev, have you seen it?
I did see it.
Where and why?
I was a college student in Spokane. Mm-hmm. We had just gotten the Magic Lantern Theater back, our little art house theater. Mm-hmm. It was its last night playing, and I had a night class that I had to take. I skipped the night class, told them I was not feeling well, and went and saw King of Kong at the Magic Lantern. Me and
rebel.
2 other people.
You rebel.
And it was so worth it to skip that class because it was a fantastic experience.
And that was the biology lab where you guys were talking about GMOs, and now you never know how those work.
It was the poetry class, so yeah, I can miss that.
It was our lecture on yeets. So you watched it, you liked it. Why'd you pick it for this podcast?
We have yet to do a documentary. I
True.
thoroughly enjoy documentaries, and I felt this was one that was kind of an easy one to start with and was something we both cared about. It's, video games, but also competition, and it's full of colorful characters, this story, as you're going to find out. It's not just the 2 main guys. There's lots of little hanger-on dudes throughout it that really color this story and make it something really interesting. And it's just a very entertaining documentary.
Interesting. I have heard of this. I've never seen it. And it's one of those things where I have no good reason to not see it. People loved it. People that I listened to loved it. You know what I mean? And, just an interesting topic. And kind of doing what movies do best, right? Where you can give someone a glimpse of a different world, and it doesn't have to be, fucking the World of Warcraft. It could be the subgenre of guys who want to beat high scores in classic arcade games. You know what I mean?
And the people who moderate those high scores, which is a whole nother section of this world.
Right.
Which we're going to explore.
Right. It's kind of like analogous, I think, of like there's the card game Magic the Gathering that you probably remember from the nerdy kids in your school playing, But like if you like delve into that, there's like tournaments and then there's like judges. So it's like there's people who are like basically like fucking NFL referee level, where it's like there's tournaments that are like they give out like $100,000 in prize money. So these guys are like having to make judgments on things and people can make mistakes and it's like,
yep.
I don't know. I go to the movies for these little worlds. You know what I mean?
Especially documentaries. I mean, that's what the best documentaries do is expose you to. These are people in your world on the same planet as you that actually exist doing these things. It's out there.
Speaking of documentaries have been a staple of cinema since the dawn of the medium, going all the way back to 1922's Nanook of the North, which is considered to be the first feature-length documentary.
Indeed.
However, there's been some debate in the film community. Many documentaries, including Nanook, including The King of Kong, feature skewered viewpoints and outright stage footage, which we'll discuss after watching the movie. There's generally a belief among the film community that documentaries should be 100% truthful and though not have anything, staged, or there's an idea that if you modify the truth in any way, you've bastardized the whole thing and lost your integrity. What do you make of that?
I think viewpoint is relative. Somebody's opinion, I don't think it depends on the documentary, but I don't believe in this rule that they have to be telling the absolute truth. It can be skewed, and that can color the footage and the film overall, that it is like a skewed viewpoint, but we kind of all have skewed viewpoints, and it's, you can kind of see through it if it's fake, you can kind of feel better about it if it's true, but I don't believe in this rule that they absolutely have to be true all the time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because you never want to say that like people should fake anything or they should manipulate the audience, right? If the idea is that what you're presenting is quote unquote truthful, but the act of editing is an act of crafting a story, right?
Yes.
The release of a documentary is an act of saying this story is important, right? Like there's a documentary called Som, which is about sommeliers, right? So the creation of the documentary implies, just as existence implies that topic is worth spending an hour and a half knowing about. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a manipulation in everything, and I think that there's I get the idea of idealism, of having integrity, of having ethics and stuff like that. I mean, and those are all good things to have, and no one's gonna debate that. But at the same time, we're telling stories here, and the act of telling a story is to take a stance on something, right? Like, who's sympathetic, who's the villain. That's a story. There's a protagonist and antagonist, and if you give it a 3-act structure, right, you have the setup, something happens, and I feel like, spoil. I've not seen this documentary, but I feel like that's gonna happen here. That you introduce some people, something's gonna happen, right? Then you're gonna have the whole middle part, ups and downs, blah blah blah. Crescendo's at the lowest point, and then we rise back up and we get out of there. So,
I mean, there's an old saying that history is just a lie agreed upon.
yes.
It's just, everything is going to be from somebody's perspective.
Right. And so, like, one of the controversies with this movie is that the hot sauce guy, Billy, right? Billy?
Yeah.
The hot sauce guy, Billy, come across as a dick. And he's like, I'm not a dick. But maybe the way he was acting, the director's like, this guy's a dick. You know what I mean?
And there are people who have said, oh no, he was perfectly nice. But then there's other people who are like, that guy is such an asshole.
Yeah. And it's like, there's my side, your side, and the truth, right? It's hard to... It's a tough thing because, I mean, you do want something to represent the general agreed upon truth, as how you phrased it. So there's a documentary called All This Mayhem, and it's a documentary on Tass Pappas, who's a skateboarder from the late 80s, early 90s, who was in a lot of vert competitions with Tony Hawk, right? And the movie alleges that Tony Hawk cheated and was a really shitty dude. And, like, Tony Hawk's dad helped put together the league that, they all competed in, so the judges were soft on him. And then all these articles got written from the skateboard community that was like, dude, none of that is true at all. And, like, this documentary really misleads the public and focuses too much on Tass's opinion of what happened as opposed to, like, the facts of what happened. So I do think that there's a middle line that you have to represent, right? You know what I mean? Like,
sure. I mean, this is like a very exploitative example of like
right.
Somebody had an agenda,
yeah,
and skewed everything to get their way, and those are really easy to see through. I think, especially when the stories start coming out, people are like, no, that's not what happened,
right?
And when other people are corroborating what they're saying, then it's that thing kind of all falls apart. So,
and that's it's an extreme example. But then you have like Dogtown and Z-Boys, right? Which is like a movie that I love, but it does really make it seem like no one else. These guys revolutionized this shit, and no one else had anything to do with it. And if there's other guys like from that era of skateboarding, like Dwayne Peters and Steve Olson, who were also like these punk rock guys who were very influential at the time. So it's hard because a documentary can be one guy's perspective on something. And it can even be presented as one guy's perspective on something, but because you don't know anything about it, you might think this is just the whole story. So a lot of it is like, you versus what they're trying to do and your interpretation of what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so I don't know. It's tough.
And again, it helps to get the different viewpoints, but, somebody was passionate enough to go out and actually shoot the thing and talk about the thing and edit the thing. So it's... I'm not saying that makes them more right, but that's what's going to get the conversation going. So, and nothing's ever going to be neutral.
No,
and you wouldn't want that. That would be so boring. That's just a lecture class,
right?
We can get somebody's opinion on it, and a documentary should have something to say, and I think it should have a viewpoint. It shouldn't just be, I don't know, just laying out a bunch of stuff for us.
Right.
It can be trying to say something.
Even
if that something is just get you to think about everything that's going,
right.
Because then, again, it's just a textbook at that point. This should have some emotion in it. I'm cringing my hands.
I see that. Cringe your hands up into rapid fire documentary. 1, 2, 3, go right now. Going Clear, Scientology, The Prison of Belief.
Great film.
Haven't seen it. The film's Michael Moore.
Some better than others, but I think, again, that's one that he kind of skews the facts a little bit to his favor, but what he's saying is starting the conversation that needs to be started.
I agree with you. Planet Earth.
Great. I mean, just talk about a magical world that is just not too far from where we live,
I hate it.
What?
I don't want to watch a polar bear be lost. What?
Well, I mean, there's more to it than that. Also, apparently, some of my stoner friends say, watch that high, and it's quite good.
I'm sure lots of things are good when you're eating Doritos.
Some things are only good when you're high.
Psalm.
Never saw it.
I highly recommend it. It's an amazing documentary on what it takes to be a sommelier. I've never loved anything as much as these guys like wine. You know what I mean?
All right. Wow.
It's crazy. ESPN 30 for 30 films.
Again, lots of okay ones, but there are some really great ones.
Some really great ones. I think that the Broke one is fucking
Broke should
so
be
good.
Required viewing for every student athlete
Right.
out
And
there.
it makes things interesting that I don't like, i.e. sports. So, some good stuff out there.
You can watch The Best That Never Was, I think, is probably the best one.
Who's that on?
It's about a kid named Marcus Dupree, who's a phenomenal high school player. Got drafted by signed a scholarship with Oklahoma, and about how a kid who he had a lot of raw talent, but maybe not a lot of good advice around him, and he could have been one of the greatest players to ever play the game, but it shows how school politics and family and his own kind of upbringing kind of scuttled his career. So I highly recommend that one.
Active Killing.
Devastating, very hard to watch, but very good.
Never seen it. Restrepo.
This one was big. I don't know, it didn't do much for me.
I mean, it's heavy and I think it shows a lot, but I feel like it doesn't. I mean, I think it shows a lot, but I feel like, it's one of those things where it's like, we don't have an answer. I mean, I think when people can appreciate it later in time when we've figured some more things out, but right now it just shows you something, and then for me personally, it's like, okay, now what do we do? And I don't have, nothing. Dogtown and Z-Boys.
I've never seen it.
Interesting.
Just check it out.
You should check it out. Lake of Fire. Never even heard of this.
This is a good one. Tony Kaye directed this. The guy who did American History X.
Oh, is this about abortion?
It's about abortion.
Holy shit.
He looks at all sides of it. It's the people that are for it, the people that are against it. This documentary is 2.5 hours, and he did it over 10 years, I think. And the ending of it is so powerful, and I think really sums up the entire debate, I think. And I can spoil it if you want. But,
yeah, go ahead.
Basically, it ends with a girl who has chosen to get an abortion. We've heard every side of it. We've seen pictures of dead children, baby parts being washed away. And she's like, this is absolutely what I need to do in my life, or I won't survive. And then she breaks down in tears and cries. And it's it's not the best choice to make, but it should be a choice, is basically what it builds up to. It's not an easy, the idea that there's these women just whoring around getting abortions is absurd. It's an emotionally devastating choice to make, but it should be a choice that's available. To end one life is to save another one. It's incredibly powerful, and it's very good. So on that sunny note,
we'll move on to another sunny documentary, Grizzly Man.
hey, that's probably my favorite documentary, Grizzly Man.
Pretty great. Pretty great.
Werner Herzog's, all of his documentaries are fantastic.
And we'll wrap it up quick here. Man on Wire.
Another fantastic one.
Never seen it. Need to see it.
Don't bother with The Walk. Just watch Man on Wire.
That's what literally everyone has ever said about that movie. Hoop Dreams.
Another classic in the genre.
Yeah, total classic.
Another one, kind of an ESPN 30 for 30 before that was a thing.
Yeah.
But even more in depth and even more emotionally powerful.
And kind of an interesting thing of it shows you you could be the best somewhere but not the best everywhere.
Yep.
And how I don't think people really understand that. It's you're the best in your high school, then you get to college and you're
Well, and what a commitment for the filmmakers to make, to just say we're gonna follow these kids for 4 years. You don't know if a story is gonna come out of that.
Right.
And
last but not least, Exit Through the Gift Shop.
That's an interesting one. So that one really plays with the format of the documentary.
It does. Speaking of the format of documentary, what do you like better, cinema verite or talking head?
I think you can get a mix of both, but I think cinema verite to me is a little more interesting. So you kind of get people in moments they're not prepared for.
I'm gonna say I like the talking head style because I feel like that's just a more crisp, moving kind of thing.
I mean, I like it too.
Yeah. Errol Morris or Werner Herzog?
Werner Herzog.
Who crushes existentialism better?
Yeah, Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
That existentialism gone.
Yeah, I gotta go with Herzog. He's just a madman.
I mean, even his once he takes on like lighter subjects like Encounters at the End of the World, which is about people that live in Antarctica like year round. He finds.
Does the penguin have madness in its mind?
I didn't come prepared with my Werner Herzog impression.
It's okay.
But it'll come later.
You don't have to do that. Are you a fan of classic arcade games, bro?
Shit, yeah, I am. They test your skills in a variety of different ways and are just extremely fun to play.
I'm more of a fan of the... Not the classics are like your Donkey Kong Jr., your Q*bert, your Dig Dug, your Rampage, your Galactica, your Contra, your R-Type, your Pac-Man. I like Pac-Man. I don't like any of the other ones of those. Like, not that I don't like them, but they're just not the most... I'm not good at them. You know, I'm not... This is fun. I like the next generation up. I like the beat-em-ups. But what I really like are racing games and gun games. You know what I mean? Like, the racing game where you're sitting in the big seat and you have the shifter and you have the thing and you're... You know, and you're cruising USA, bro.
San Francisco Rush.
Yeah, you know.
All the motorcycle ones.
Yeah, where you're sitting on the bike. Yeah.
Over.
I like those. And in the shooting games, those are the most fun to me. But
House of the Dead.
Yeah.
Time Crisis.
Also, shout out times a million. Shout out to Neon in Pasadena. If you're in Southern California, Neon in Pasadena. That's the best.
$10 an hour, unlimited play.
Right. And you might say to yourself, $10 an hour, that's a lot of money. It's like, you listen, you're not going to be there for more than an hour and a half, right?
Yep.
So that's $15. And then it's $15 and you can beat...
I beat Final Fight for the
first time ever
in my life.
Turtles in Time, the Simpsons arcade game. You can play pinball for more than one round. You know what I mean? We beat House of the Dead. Great stuff.
You can finally see how those games end without
and you can play,
spending $40 in quarters.
Yeah, because the amount of times you hit that restart button is 40.
You realize those games are designed to just take your quarters.
Right, and then you can you can play Pac-Man without any fear, because like if you die, it's cool, dude. Let's play again. Great stuff. All right, Kev, let's get into this thing.
Here we go.
We're back.
We're back.
Lot to talk about here. First things first, Kev. When, where, how'd you see it?
I watched my DVD copy of The King of Kong. Mm-hmm. Probably last week, I want to say.
Yeah.
Last week. So
I watched it. Today is January 31st. I watched it on Friday, and I watched it on Hulu, which had it streaming for if you had Hulu Plus.
Yeah, you need the Hulu Plus.
Yeah, which I do have. So
look at you.
Yeah.
High roller.
This is the first time it's actually paid off. So, first things first, we're going to talk about... So I watched it on my TV with Emily. We'll get to that in a minute. And friend of the show. And we're going to talk about... We alluded to, a little mishmash here. So we're going to talk about the movie as presented first. So we're going to start there. And we're going to move on to other topics. But... Okay, so the first thing I want to say is, I don't like old school games, on the whole, right? And this movie presents me with why, because they say it. It's a thesis statement early in the movie, which older games are about memorization and pattern recognition, and I feel like I like story and rewarding gameplay, right? So it's like when you're playing Gears of War, just throw a title there. It's like, you hit the little cover button, and you snap to the cover, you snap to the wall, and then you throw a grenade over, and it's like there's a satisfaction there. And I feel like the satisfaction in playing like Donkey Kong is just knowing that you're better than everyone else, which I don't really care about. You know what I mean? And knowing that you can do something that's nigh impossible, which is bizarre. So I just want to get that out of the way. That this whole time I'm looking at these games and I'm like, this would not be fun to me ever, right? Like that idea of like figuring out how to get to the kill screen in Donkey Kong by in the level like the elevator level 3, which is like stage 8. You know what I mean? Where the springs fly across and you have to like time it absolutely correctly because the 7th spring is always won't kill you. No, none of that for me. Thank you. I'll play Uncharted.
I love old games. Mm-hmm. For those reasons, because they really do require.
But do you play those games? I mean, we go to Neon Arcade, but I mean, do you?
I fire up Donkey Kong every now and
then. The
old school one
with a fistful of quarters, huh?
Yep, with a fistful of quarters. I have it on my Wii. Sometimes you just need to get some Donkey Kong out.
I just can't. How far in the game can you get?
I can usually get to about that elevator level they talked about. I got past it once, and boy, did I feel good.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, Steve Wiebe had to fucking go all autistic to figure this one out, and I did it.
Well, and I also think that personality-wise, I don't get anything out of like I would rather just experience something as it goes. You know, like how you watch a movie, right? Where you just go through and do it. Like I don't like dying all the time, having to restart and that frustrating. If there's something really hard in a video game and I keep dying, and when I get past it, I don't feel any relief. I'm just like there's a like a joy. There's like a not even. It's not joy. It's not satisfaction. There's like a knowledge that I'm finally past this, and that's good. There's an acknowledgement that it's good, but I don't feel. It doesn't feel good to like do that. You know what I mean?
Oh, I feel good.
Yeah.
When I conquer something that I like am struggling with and then finally get through it through my own gumption, boy, it makes me feel special.
And I do think that there's a lot of people who feel that way. It's just I think there is a division there where it's like I'm having more fun playing fucking Metal Gear Solid, just like figuring out the plot and and all this, like that's fun. You know what I mean? Or like Call of Duty where you're just mowing fucking dudes down. You know what I mean? And blowing up helicopters. That's fun. But like, when you're being fucking you rage quit, I don't like that.
I like the games of genuine skill where you have to develop your abilities. It's you can be better at it than somebody. I feel not every game is like that.
No, it's true. It's true.
Some games it's just you're literally just pushing the buttons and to progress.
And okay, so what's interesting is that this movie's all predicated on score, like the score that you get in a game, the points. Which is another thing I've never given a shit about in games. Like me and my brother played Mario as kids. It's always about beating the game. It wasn't about who cares what score you get. That's completely incidental.
The score in Mario is very perfunctory.
Right.
It's just there because that's what was in video games.
Right. And I think that represents the switch from the old school to a newer school where it's like Mario still had points left over from the thing. And it's cute when you hit a Goomba and it's 100 points or whatever. But like, yeah, you don't really give a shit.
No,
you know what I mean?
You don't get anything for crossing point thresholds.
Right.
In that game.
I mean, I think you might get a 1-up if you after a million lives, but you might as well just find a 1-up. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Rather than doing that. So okay, so we could talk video games for hours, and eventually we will. But let's get to the King of Kong. So going in this movie, I thought the movie would be about the rage to win. Like. You see that in sports all the time in sports and just people who are highly competitive. They have this inside of them. It's a rage just to fucking be number one. It seeps through them. It's like a fire in their eyes, right? But this movie, I feel like, is not about a rage to win. It's about two people. Billy. It's about idol worship, right? It's about a guy. There's a cult of Billy Mitchell in this fucking movie, right? Presented here, right? It's like at one point, what's his face says when he walks in a room, everyone takes note.
Yep.
Which I think, as the audience, they're kind of. I mean, I think the movie's kind of making fun of him because it's like we don't even know who this guy is, and he's talking about him in a universal way, like as if he's a Beatle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when Paul McCartney walks in a room, people are like, "That's fucking Paul McCartney, best guitar player of all time, biggest band of all time, whatever. But Billy Mitchell is like, if Billy Mitchell walked into a room, you'd be like, that's a guy with a bad haircut and a stupid tie. You know what I mean?
The average person would say that.
Yeah.
Those of the cult, no.
Right.
He's magic.
Right. And also, in the beginning of the movie, when the folk song started to be sung about Billy, that's when Emily really started to squirm. And I'm like, uh-oh.
I think that's an intended effect, though.
No, completely.
So, this movie is not... I don't think this movie's on Billy's side, ever.
But I also think the movie is making fun of this subculture.
I don't know about making fun.
I think at that point...
But it's just kind of showing it for what it is.
I think it's definitely making fun of Day. The guy who plays Roger Day or
Howard Day, I think. Stand by.
Walter Day.
Walter Day.
He is the referee, the senior referee of Twin Galaxies.
Yeah.
And I definitely think the movie is really fucking around with this dude.
I don't know if I don't think so.
You don't think that in the beginning they present him as like a wackadoo, where he's talking about these things like they're so important,
he's presented as a wackadoo, but then
he may in the movie's defense he may be a wackadoo.
He just might be a wackadoo, but there's also that kind of really melancholy part in the middle where Billy is like, Twin Galaxies is completely just like a pet project and nobody makes any money on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, Walter's probably making less than a couple $100 a month.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this is purely something he wants to do, and it's not, it's kind of a sad moment where it's like, is he kind of in Arrested Development? Is it just something? Does he just have no money? And it's like, how does he?
He makes his living teaching transcendental meditation, and this has been his hobby for 25 years or whatever it's been at that point, right?
Yeah.
Since the 80s, so about 25 years at that point, right? 81 to 2006 when this came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, he's kept the fire alive, but then he kind of loses his passion around 2010 when he retires, which is sad because I feel like now in 2016, 6 years later, right now is when the interest is back into old school games. You have barcades now. Yep. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's all coming back. And, Dave & Buster's and all that kind of shit. It's just kind of sad that, like, he kept the fire alive and he got out of it just in time for it to all blow back up.
Yeah.
As much as it ever will. But, okay, so I feel like Billy is about idol worship, right?
Yeah.
And I think for the other character, Steve, who is the guy threatening Billy's throne, it's about searching for glory and seeking out in a meaningful way to you, right? Because Steve says he's never reached his potential, and everyone in his life also agrees, which is like, it's crazy because Steve Wiebe has a wife, a family, a house. He has a career. He's a teacher.
A house in Redmond, Washington, which is not cheap to live in.
Right. And there's no glory in any of that for him, which is, I think, you could interpret it a lot of ways, but it makes it a very human story, right? Because humanity is always about reaching for the next thing, right? And it's like, for us living our suburban lives, you know what I mean? It's like, I got all this stuff, so it doesn't lose its value in the sense that it's not important, right? Your family is obviously important to him, and his, wife and his faith and all this shit, but that's not glory, because you've achieved it.
Yeah.
So it's not glorious. It's maybe important, but it's not glorious anymore. So it's the glory, and he fucked up. He was like a basketball player and a baseball player, and a musician and an artist, and none of that ever really panned out anywhere. Then he got good at Donkey Kong, and then that became his pursuit of glory. And as silly or as legitimate or as silly as that may seem to anyone, right? The game is objectively super duper hard, and being good at it is objectively super duper rare. So that is an interesting thing, is like finding glory in anywhere you can get it, right? You know what I mean? So I just thought that I was not expecting the movie to be about those two things.
It's a good point. I mean, it is kind of a classic underdog tale, but just told for a very obscure audience, a very obscure world.
Exactly. In this bizarro subculture of grown men who are obsessed with these children's games, right?
Yep.
And at the time, and I mean, I like video games, and I don't think that all video games are. I don't want to be dismissive in that way. I mean, I feel that way about sports, right? We're obsessed with sports, and sports is like an adult thing, quote unquote, right? But those are children's games that millionaires play. You know what I mean? And we're obsessed with it. And it's like, objectively, it's like, mom and dad were farming, and little Billy and Jimmy and Timmy fucking invented baseball. You know what I mean? Like, and then now millionaires play it, and we live and die on those weekends. You know what I mean? And watching them do it.
I mean, it's there's that point where one of Billy's lackeys is like, everybody games. He's like, monks play cards, chess, and all that. It's like, it is just this inherent human need to play and be entertained.
Yeah.
It's just very primordial, and that's what's so fascinating about it, I think. Mm-hmm. And yeah, do they mean anything? Really? No. They don't generate anything. They don't do anything, like, physically. But they provide so much of an outlet for us and our emotions that we do become very obsessed with them.
Right.
So, that's why video game makers drive Porsches now and McLarens and shit. Mm-hmm. If you go to the Activision parking lot, that thing is loaded with some fine iron.
And you find yourself there often, Kev? Or?
I used to work not too far from their office. So.
I thought the end of that sentence was, I used to work there, but I used to work next to that.
Yep.
We used to go to the BJ's brewery that was shared a parking lot. When I was growing up in the Bay Area, there is one of the old Apple buildings was like next to a BJ's whatever, and we went there, we would park there and walk. and because you gotta get the Bazooki Man.
Yep.
It's a fucking gigantic cookie with ice cream. And one time there was an old Volvo, like a 80s Volvo, bumper sticker, commit random acts of kindness, back windshield smashed in the Apple parking lot. And I'm like, this is dark. So I think the story they're trying to tell in the movie with Billy, right? They're presenting a confident guy who loses his mind when he's threatened with losing his championship, right?
Yep.
That's his glory. And I mean, the first part of the movie, Billy is cocky and confident and Mr. USA and a bit.
For the first part, I would say the whole thing.
Well, right, but when we first see him, he's not a fucking maniac, right? He's just wacky. Yeah. Right, he's like, oh, but the guy I went up with, he was Mr. Canada, so I became Mr. USA, and he's talking about his hot sauces, and he's just he's just being a Looney Tune, right? And that's cool. But then it also, and I think people, from what people have said about this movie, I think that they forget, like, in the beginning, he's he puts over the idea of you have to be there live and you have to perform, and it's a performance, and it's like a sport, right?
Yeah, you gotta do it when the lights are on you.
Yeah, and I think everyone remembers that, but I think everyone forgets, like, there is a moment of him being a good dude. He talks about charity, he talks about, like, his family is his most important thing, and then the game stuff is his second most important achievement.
Yeah.
He gives Dolores an arcade.
Yep.
Doris, an arcade, and she's like, she
gets to play Q-Bird.
Yeah, she was so cute. She's like, ah! And he's like, surprise!
Yep.
And like, he's not, in the beginning of the movie, he's not portrayed as a bad guy. A Looney Tune for sure, but not a bad guy. And he starts going crazy when, and he also says, and I thought this was critical, he says, it would be bad if someone faked a record, but it's worse if they broke one and are not recognized, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, this guy is like fucking Mr. Sportsmanship, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Then he loses his fucking mind, right? Where he's like, he refuses to show up. He refuses to face his competitor. He's sending in Bobo tapes, who have all these tracking issues in them, and he just becomes a dick and an inconsistent hypocrite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that that's what's going on here? That his other interpretation, I guess, would be that, like, he just doesn't owe anyone anything, right? It's like, I don't owe you. I set my record, like. This community trusts me enough that they believe my scores.
That's the thing right there, is he knows just how well thought of he is.
Right.
He hasn't been proven wrong yet.
Ever.
Because these people just worship him. Shown visually really well. Steve Weeby's playing Donkey Kong at Fun Spot in New Hampshire. Probably the only thing to do in New Hampshire.
I did look into that. You're right.
And he's like just gotten the kill screen in Donkey Kong, first kill screen ever at Fun Spot, and then Billy's tape comes, and then he's still playing Donkey Kong, and he's all alone all of a sudden, and then pans over, and there's the crowd watching Billy's tape.
Right.
Billy just knows that he can get away with that.
Right. Because, and that's an interesting thing, because it's like, he submits this tape, and it's like this a crazy thing, because like Billy's always talking about doing it live, improving it, and then he sends the tape. But then at the end of the movie, Walter Day is like, Steve, we got to know you. We think you're a great guy, and if you you're good to submit just tapes now, right? So you see that is the culture there. It's like, until we get to know you, right?
Yeah.
We don't trust no bullshit about you, because we live in a world of emulators and things. People can slow down the game, and you can speed it back up and fake a run through a game, right? Yeah. So now they believe him. So now they'll accept a video thing. And Billy knows that the people will accept a crummy video that he makes. Yep. So he just sends it in, and he's just like taking the steam out of that guy's sails. You know what I mean? Steam out of his sails, wind out of his sails.
Steam would just burn sails.
And they never show Billy playing any games in this movie. Not in archival footage, not at the time of shooting.
And his wife at one point says, I don't think Billy ever goes to competitions or something like
right.
that.
But then that I think speaks to this idea of, it's like if you were fucking Wayne Gretzky, right? You don't need to be taking slap shots on the ice with the other pros. It's like, dude, I am the greatest. Right? If someone beats my individual record, that's fine, but I don't owe anyone anything. So I think that, the thought around this movie is that Billy is like this tremendous douchebag and like just like a monster, right? And I don't know if he's a monster so much as a guy who just doesn't, he's like, what am I have to prove to anyone? You know what I mean?
He's very calculating.
Yes.
He's very smart and he's very deceptive. Mm-hmm. And it's, those things aren't mutually exclusive, being smart and being like a nice person,
Yes.
It's like, some of the worst people are some of the smartest people.
And
they know exactly what buttons to push and which way to go and how to get what they want.
Right.
And that's what Billy's doing.
And in terms of, to compare this to sports, right, some of the best players are fucking maniacs, right? Like, Tom Brady is a fucking maniac. They show photo. They'll never comment on it, but sometimes you see him on the sideline screaming at people, right? And like, if people, I remember I was watching something on ESPN. There, one of his friends talking. It's like, yeah, you can't play checkers with this dude. He'll fucking freak the hell out, right? Because he has this rage to win.
Yep.
And like, Jordan is the same. Like Michael Jordan, like gambling, fucking being a crazy person, screaming at people, slapping people in the face. Like, it's like when guys who are compelled to greatness like that, they're just nuts, or it seems to bring out the nuttiness of them, or culture allows them to be nutty, which is kind of what spoken to here, where it's like, hey, you want to be an asshole and like not even show up to this event, but submit your tape. It's like everyone gathered everyone around, like, let's watch. They watched a 2-hour fucking Donkey Kong game.
Yep.
They watched 2 hours of someone playing Donkey Kong.
But it was Billy playing Donkey Kong.
That is nuts
the
to
cult.
me. Yeah.
And, it's kind of a bitter pill to swallow, but in order to kind of be that level of greatness, you do have to be kind of crazy. I think.
Do you think that's true?
Is what we're discovering. I think so. People push against it these days because arrogance is just this thing that is bad, apparently. So, to me,
how arrogant of you! But like, I mean, I don't know if Guillermo del. I guess I like the weirdo artist more than I like the crazy rage to win guy. Right? I like Guillermo del Toro. Right? Where it's like he just seems like a fucking weirdo, but like in a fun way.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I mean, he has his quirks, but you feel like you could really just sit and get to know the guy.
Mm-hmm.
One of the IT guy I used to work with in my work, his parents knew, like his daughters, like someone through his school, they knew Guillermo del Toro's daughter, so they had like a personal relationship with Guillermo del Toro, and yeah, some of those guys they can be great and seem like they're really level headed, but the people that you kind of really remember are sometimes the biggest assholes too. You make a controversial statement here. John Lennon was an asshole.
I don't think that's controversial. I mean, I think that's well documented.
He was a colossal asshole.
Yeah.
But how many shrines do you see of John Lennon? How many people cite him as an influence?
Well, yeah.
Michael Jordan was the greatest, and he was an asshole.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant's gonna be one of the greatest, and he's
a fucking rapist.
One of the most rapist. And
allegedly. Also, Tom Brady allegedly an asshole. Michael Jordan allegedly an asshole. Guillermo del Toro allegedly awesome.
Yep, allegedly. But those guys are gonna be remembered forever,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of what Billy Mitchell is getting at. It's like if you have to be the best, and sometimes you have to step over people to do that. Sometimes a guy's got to have the screws getting put to him, the Steve Weebys of the world, But and then that's kind of what the movie explores too, is that maybe you can reach that greatness and not be crazy fucking Billy Mitchell, 'cause Steve Weeby does seem fulfilled by the end of this, that he has achieved something that he's always wanted, and when blood, sweat, and tears over. Sometimes his family's tears, sometimes his tears.
Emily kept noting, like, he's like, oh, so you're just going to leave your kids at home and go play arcade games? Great. It's funny.
His family supported him.
Before we get to that, let me talk about this. The board controversy. So, if we've all seen the movie, this was when what we were told was, unannounced, 2 guys from Twin Galaxies fly from fucking Ohio or wherever they're...
I think it's in Iowa.
Yeah. They fly to Washington, go to this dude's house. They break in the sense that the wife is like, Steve's not home, like, he'll be back soon, like, just wait outside. And then they just go inside anyways.
I like when she's like, yes, I'm the wife of the Donkey Kong guy.
Yeah. And then they start taking apart his machine, his arcade cabinet, to determine whether or not it's a legitimate arcade cabinet, and they find that he has replaced one of the boards in the game because it's a fucking 30-year-old arcade game, and it broke, and they replaced it, and the guy you replaced it with is Billy's rival,
Mr. Awesome,
who is a pickup artist, that's a whole another movie over there. What the fuck is going on here?
Again, it's the level of how much they worship Billy Mitchell, and if anything is threatened, his little cronies are going to go out and take care of it, or see what's going on. And as we were talking about earlier, that's a very enclosed circle that they have. And so now all of a sudden this dad from Washington is submitting million-point Donkey Kong games. It's like they're going to be suspicious, Is it right? Absolutely not. It's fucked up completely. But that's their little mindset, To them, that's like attacking Billy and his Donkey Kong record.
But if you change and I don't know anything about electronics, but if you changed a capacitor on the board, does that change the game? Like, can it? But the rules of the game are determined by the code, right? You have to change the code, don't you?
No, there's again, I'm no electrical engineer, but those boards are very sensitive, and there's things you can put on it or manipulate on it to do certain things.
That's interesting.
It's it's totally wild.
So then it gets into the conversation about you have to go to a sanction spot to beat the score, and so when they arrive at Fun Spot, Emily turns to me and she goes, "I hate Kev for making me watch this." And I had to pause it. I was laughing so much. Oh man!
I don't apologize for anything,
and nor should you. Is there anything you want to say about the movie, topic-wise, you want to discuss?
I think we've covered it pretty well. That it's definitely not the movie you expect. You think it's going to be kind of this silly documentary about a video game rivalry,
but it's a serious, it's like a guy trying to find meaning in his life.
Exactly, it's a human story,
and a guy trying not to lose the meaning of his life, and that's it's heavy, man.
It goes to some very emotional places. It's very funny. It's sad.
Yeah. It's
uplifting. It gets you all riled up and frustrated. You're like, fucking Billy is sending tapes now? What the hell is that? It just stirs a lot of emotion. It's a movie about video games.
And even Walter Day, who's there seems to be some regret where he's like, I've done it long enough. I want to have a music career. And it's like, he's a 6-year-old man trying to have a music career. It's like, I don't know if that's a thing. You know what I mean?
You never heard of C6 Steve?
I have not.
Yeah. It's a guy who's he's big in Britain, and he's an older, swampy kind of dude, and he's selling millions of albums now, playing with John Paul Jones.
And also, I don't want to pick on Walter Day, but it's just when you find out that he teaches transcendental meditation, it's like, of course you do. You know what I mean? And also, and I don't want to pick on the guys in this movie, but fashion-wise, it reminds me why I just want to wear a black t-shirt and black jeans and black shoes and a black jacket and a black hat for the rest of my life. Because, holy shit.
It's a fashion apocalypse, this movie.
It is.
From Billy Mitchell on down.
Speaking of which, let's get into some Q&A before we start talking about some other things here. The film showcases a rich cast of characters and hangers-on who alliances are firmly with Billy, but then as we go along the movie, may or may not switch to Steve, what do you think about that? Do you think that Steve proves himself to be a good guy? Do you think that they treat everyone like this and we're just seeing it through Steve's eyes? Do you think that Steve is unique? What was your interpretation of that?
First of all, the cast is very interesting for a documentary. It's just, there's all kinds of colorful characters, there's all kinds of weirdos, and they're all different, and they're all very distinct. I think the most despicable of which is Brian Koo, who retired after selling his tech company and just is Billy's main ego stroker.
Yeah, he's best friend.
He's stroking something. And, he was one of the guys who was allegedly at Steve's house, and then there's just the dude who plays marble. He plays Marble Madness with his feet. So that dude's interesting. Remember that guy?
Yeah, and that was weird.
And then there's like the head referee for Twin Galaxies, not Walter Day, the other guy. The guy who talks like this with the glasses, he watches tapes all day.
He's like not the head referee, but the official like checker.
Yeah, he watches just tapes all day and confirms records. It just gives us this story so much more flavor that all these guys are just around, and the way they kind of bandy between Steve and Billy as the story flows. It's just, again, it's kind of a human nature thing of like they all were the Billy worshippers, but then they kind of have a come to Jesus moment. Now they want to see Steve go all the way. It's time for a new king, and going back to talking about greatness, it kind of divides the line in the sand of like Steve and Billy are driven to be the greatest at something, and these guys are kind of just the posers, and they seem content with being just the lackeys.
I don't know if they're posers. Because I think they are hardcore as hardcore gets.
Yeah,
but they are definitely his lackeys.
Marble Madness with his feet, hardcore.
Listen, that's gross. So, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting because, I think that is personified in this movie, but is true of everything. You know what I mean? Like, there's the guys that are perceived to be the top guys, and then there's everyone who's trying to be a top guy. You know what I mean? And they want to be in... I don't think everyone's story is so tragic as what's presented here, but, when the dude fails to get he's like, I want to get a kill screen today. I've never done it in Donkey Kong. And then Weeby does it, and he can't.
Yep.
It's like, you see that he's sad.
There's that shot that holds on him.
He's like, it's great that Steve was able to do it, and hopefully I'll be able to do that one day.
Yep. And then
it's that sad. He's like, look, you have to cry. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, it's a human story on every level.
Yeah.
For every Michael Jordan, there's a Scottie Pippen.
And for every Scottie Pippen, there's a
Muggsy Bogues.
And for every Muggsy Bogues, there's some guy whose name you don't even know.
Yep.
And he works at a box factory now.
Yep.
Do you see esports growing?
It's
and to define here, sorry, esports being competitive gaming.
ESPN is dedicating coverage to it now. It's not just growing; it has grown and it's huge.
Yeah.
It's not just isolated to certain countries now. Where in Korea it was always gigantic, but now in America there's all of a sudden an audience for it.
And I will admit here publicly that I have watched people play StarCraft, and you listen to it with the commentary, and they're talking about and Kevin making a massive Zerglings here. I don't know what he's planning there, and we go over here to Mr. Jibber Jabber, and trying to get that second expansion going, but having a little hard time with those overlords. Craziness.
Yeah, I watched the Super Smash Bros. Ones to up my own game in Super Smash Bros. Yeah, okay, this is how the best guys do it.
When I was unemployed for 9 months, I did watch a tremendous amount of Call of Duty 4 online material, and I'm like, I even through YouTube talked to some guy, and I'm like, how do you check the corner like that? You always just turn the corner and kill a guy. He's like, you just got to do it. And I'm like, thanks. You fucking British fucker.
It's probably Billy Mitchell.
Billy Mitchell.
You just have to do it. You just have to be the best.
And me and Emily went out to breakfast today. We were watching, they had TV on, and they were playing the X Games or whatever. And they had coverage of Halo Championship stuff there. And it was very strange.
The arenas that these are in now are they're legitimate arenas. There's lighting and fireworks and shit, and it's
entrance music.
It's bizarre, But again, I think there is a level of skill to it, but it's not a physical skill. It's not physical prowess, which has been the standard of sports since the first Olympics in Athens.
Yeah, but I think the physical side of sports is always the side that people personify, but there is a mental side of sports that is, I think, just as big and even bigger, right? Because there's a thought that especially when you go to combat sports, right? A big guy, he'll always win. But if you don't have it in your heart to get punched in the face, bro, you can't be a fucking combat sports guy. You know what I mean?
Nope.
Same thing. Robert Rodriguez famously, he's like, I was a big guy in high school. He wanted me to play football, and I'm like, I don't want to get tackled. I want to sit in front of this VCR and make a fucking movie. Yep. You know what I mean? You gotta have that mental side of it. I think is we underestimate it because the people who play sports are so crazy.
Yeah.
Because they don't question that kind of thing, or at least they don't put it out there like they question it. You know what I mean?
And yeah, it's in the immortal words of Kumar, just because you're hung like a rhino doesn't mean you have to do porn. You know.
Indeed. Billy needs a haircut. True or false?
True. Although that is a very well kept head of hair.
I would argue that
it's ugly as sin, like that haircut, but his hair looks very soft.
That's like saying that it's a very even pothole.
Kind of is.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, great. It's still a fucking pothole. Do you think the movie feels staged at some points? There's a scene in particular where Billy is on the phone. Everyone's at fun. And you're seeing two sides of a conversation where Billy's lackey is calling Billy and Billy is there to get the phone call. And I just feel like that doesn't... Like, how do they know that Steve was going to break any records? How do they know that guy was going to be calling him all the time? You know what I mean?
It's amazing what you can manipulate in the editing room. Mm-hmm. As somebody who's done it before, it's like... You don't necessarily let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Right.
And if cutting it this way heightens the suspense even like a little bit, then that's probably the better way to do it. Facts be damned, you know.
Mm-hmm. When the wife...
there's definitely moments in this film, and the director has admitted it, where, you know, they're making it look... They're telling their story. Whether that's actually what happened or not, they have a narrative that they're going to stick with.
And we'll get to that shortly.
We'll get there. So, but yeah, there's definitely some moments that feel this was thought out. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they have a camera guy at Billy's house. They have a camera guy on Brian Koo. They have a camera guy on Steve Wiebe. It's like they know what they're looking for and what they're doing.
When Steve's wife says that he's talented with his hands, music, baseball, basketball, drawing, is she also talking about clip manipulation?
A little bit. I think Steve's got the prowess.
In December 2009, Steve Wiebe released a Christian contemporary album titled The King of Song.
I did not know this.
Is there any chance you will ever listen to this in your life?
No.
And then last question here. Should we get the hot sauce, Ricky's wig sauce?
I've thought about it. Their website is like hilariously 90s. It looks like it was made in GeoCities. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is not advanced at all. But I think it'll be worth a try.
So, we've talked about the movie as it was presented. Starting, ending, credits, etc. But there's controversy that we've alluded to that the truth is skewered in all documentaries, and specifically in The King of Kong. So Walter Day, the older man who runs Twin Galaxies, released a lengthy statement on the Twin Galaxies website that says that the film was dishonest about a lot of events, some of the bigger claims against The King of Kong. According to many of the participants of the film, including Wiebe and Billy Mitchell themselves, the relationship and rivalry between them was much friendlier than depicted, and they actually have a relationship as opposed to the movie which depicts them being one of them, you know, Steve trying to just get Billy to show up and Billy not even giving him the time of day.
Yeah.
There was a third Donkey Kong competitor at the time, Tim Schertzby, who actually beat Billy's 1982 records, did it 3 years before Steve was on the scene, and they completely ignore the fact that that's what's going on.
And Steve actually beats his record.
Yeah.
He's not beating Billy's world record.
Right.
And knowing that and watching this movie again, they very carefully edit it that way to show nobody ever says Steve beat Billy's record. You know,
Steve beat the record.
He beat the record.
He's challenging the record.
The record. And Billy's was the one that was there for 20 years, but it is very carefully put together to make it seem, without saying outright, that Steve beat Billy's record. Mm-hmm. That Steve got the world record Donkey Kong score. And it's from a filmmaking standpoint, it's pretty masterful the way that they can tell the story that way.
Additionally, the way that they've shown the story, right? It's like homeboy shows up on the scene, submits his tape, and he's like, done. And they're like, no, dude, we don't know you. You know what I mean? So you could reinterpret what he's trying to do with Billy, which is like, Billy, show up to these things and we'll play against each other. And then that way, people will take notice because you're a big deal. And then I will glean some fucking shine off of you because people will see that I am playing with you and I am very good, right? Whereas the movie portrays that as defend your honor. You know what I mean? What was probably really going on? He's like, hey, show up so that we can, because I'm an elite player too, and I want the rub.
Yeah.
And in typical professional wrestling pattern, you got to give the rub to the new guy to keep it all going, keep the storylines alive. But he doesn't want to do, Billy doesn't give a shit.
Yep.
Billy is depicted as bound and determined to maintain his world record status. According to Walter Day, Billy didn't really care about it and congratulated anyone who topped his many high scores, which had been topped at this point.
Yeah.
Another one is that it's depicted that Twin Galaxies is in cahoots with Billy Mitchell and did whatever they could to preserve his records. Dave vehemently denies this and says that they welcome Steve and accomplishments with open arms. Twin Galaxies say they never sent referees to the Weeby household to inspect his Donkey Kong machine. The two men were never explicitly sent by anyone, and they just went there because they wanted to, which I'm going to go ahead and editorialize and say that makes it worse.
That does make it much worse.
It makes it much worse.
Does not make me feel any better.
That's like me and Kev hearing that someone down the street has a good podcast, and we just go to their apartment and get their girlfriend to open the door, and we just start looking at their computer, looking at their setup, testing out their microphone, taking apart the fucking headphones. That's weird.
It's fucked up.
That's gross. There's a moment in the movie after Steve sets the high score at Fun Spot that Billy's tape is played and his high score is accepted. In reality, the score was rejected shortly after the event, and Walter apologized for not reviewing the tape thoroughly. The tape had a bunch of tracking issues, score jumping around, etc., etc. And then other things like, it's depicted that at the CGE 2K4 competition, Billy is brushing off Steve when in reality there's I guess a different documentary that shows footage of them talking casually.
Yeah, and even playing games together.
Mm-hmm.
So they say.
And the most damning thing is that Seth Gordon conceded to fabricating parts of the movie in order to create a more entertaining film, but maintains that Billy Mitchell is a sinister character and darker in real life than they portray him in the movie. So he feels justified in doing it.
Yeah.
So, do you think that the claims made against the movie affect how you feel about it?
Yes and no. I think some of the finer points, to me, it's not a big deal that Steve didn't break Billy's record. He broke some other guy's record. It's the story of them competing seems much more interesting, at least to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the things where it's you're accusing Twin Galaxies of sending these two guys to do some really shady shit at Steve's house. And that seems a little disingenuous, I think, because Twin Galaxies kind of held to this high regard throughout the whole movie, and to lob that claim against them when it didn't happen, that seems a little, I don't know, that seems icky.
Well, you're fucking with people. I mean, the thing is, I think it does bug me how, because when some stuff's fabricated, it's distasteful, but it's not necessarily inaccurate. Famously, in The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years, Ozzy Osbourne is cooking breakfast, and there's a insert shot of him pouring a juice and missing it because he has the shakes, right? But they faked that footage. They never got that shot on that day. So, but Ozzy was talking about how he does have the shakes and has trouble doing things, right? So while that is not literally true, it speaks to the truth of what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, again, a little bit unethical, but not necessarily a lie, right?
It's fudging a little bit to get, because you can't...
To sell the point, but that point is not intrinsically false.
Yeah.
And the point is actually intrinsically true.
Yeah. Film is a visual medium, so
Right.
you want to show that thing. You can't just have somebody sitting there...
I got the shakes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, but you want to see it.
Yeah, we want to see something. If that heightens the drama of a truth that does exist, that they just didn't get on camera that day... Mm-hmm. I can live with that personally.
So I don't like how they don't represent the third guy who broke the record, and I think that even fits into the story that they're trying to tell, right? And say you are a documentary guy, you meet Billy Mitchell, and you're like, this motherfucker is crazy, and there's a lot of darkness underneath that fop of hair, right? You could, and you're like. Hand on the Bible, that's the truth, right? That this guy is obsessed with himself and hates the fact that he's lost these records, right? If that is what you really believe, you could have put that third guy back in and just said that now that two people have broken his record, it's really fucking with him, right?
Yeah.
That he's becoming more of a footnote in this grand scheme of things. That still fits into the story, right?
Yeah.
And assuming that story is true. So to me, it's very weird that they cut that out. They didn't show that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think when you put it that way, yeah, that would be interesting to see. What's Tim Scoresby got to say about this whole thing? And the way they depict Billy, I know there's people that say, oh, he's not that evil, but then there's people that say he's way more fucked up than what that is. It's, so, you know, that's one of those really objective things where maybe we'll never really know the truth unless we actually know who Billy, like, actually meet Billy.
And it's also personal interaction with these things, right? Like, I'm sure there's people, and I know this for a fact, and, you know.
Billy's parents love him, that's for sure.
I mean, there's people that I've met, like, you know, like my girlfriend's ex-roommates from like college who fucking hated me. You know what I mean? And if someone asked them, like, what do you think about Mr. Jibber Jabber? They'd say, that guy's a fucking piece of shit. You know what I mean? And there's other people who are like, that guy's all right. And there's other people who are like, who are you talking about? So, you know, I think a man's life is more complicated than the opinion of three people. You know what I mean?
And the idea that can be caught in a documentary, I think, is nigh impossible.
Right.
To get, like...
The documentary would have to, like, be about that.
Exactly. You'd have to follow Billy Mitchell 24/7. You know, not talking about video games. How does he go to the grocery store? How does he... What movies does he watch? You know, how does he cook bacon?
Yeah.
I bet he cooks it too floppy. I bet.
Oh, not well done enough. I'm kind of with you.
I bet that's how he does it.
Do you feel good for Steve Wiebe? Do you think he wastes his time, money, and patience of his family, or like, what? Like, is that quest for glory real?
I think it's not so much the quest for glory; it's the quest for personal fulfillment. And if that is the thing that's going to fulfill you, and your family is supporting you in doing it, and you're not like completely dragging them down, then I think it is worth it. But there is that time as well. Like, what if his kids couldn't like eat, you know, but he has to go to New Hampshire to play Donkey Kong,
right?
Or
what if his kid needs to get his butt wiped, but you know,
but he's playing Donkey Kong. Come on, my butt. That's one of the funniest
Don't
things
play
ever.
Donkey Kong.
This whole movie is worth it just to see that footage.
Well, the whole movie is
so
worth it
funny.
just to see someone else watch that footage.
Yep.
When the judge guy's watching it, he's just like laughing.
Yep.
It's funny.
It's that's a classic moment. But yeah, it's for him. That's the movie portrays that this is what he wanted this whole time. It's what he's been pursuing his whole life and just hasn't found until now. Does he put some undue emotional stress on his family? Sure, but that's life. You know, you're gonna go through these moments that not everything's gonna be okay all the time.
And I also think that this movie is the personification of like what we put women through as men, right? Where it's like you have this beautiful family, you have your beautiful house, you have your career, but none of it is enough, and you need to do this fucking weird thing to satiate something inside of you, and your wife has to stand by you and be the Donkey Kong lady and go to sleep alone because you're playing Donkey Kong and sit through all the crazy shit that you love. You know what I mean? Like, if your girlfriend hates football and you love football...
Oh, and she does.
Every year, you're putting her through some shit. You know what I mean?
And yes, her seeing me get emotionally distressed over a fucking football game.
And
I wish it didn't happen, but by God, I'm too invested in it.
You know,
so.
it's just, I mean, the same thing, you know, it's like, for Emily, it's like, hey, I can't hang out. I gotta fucking edit this podcast.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like, cool. So, and then when we're recording, it's like, so cool. So I have our laptop. I am using our main living room. I'm using... you know, you have to be super quiet, and you can either leave or hang out in the bedroom. The choice is yours. You know what I mean? It's like I think it puts it in perspective. You got to appreciate what women have to put up with in society for men to try to fucking mean something to themselves.
And we appreciate it.
And we do, girls. You're the best.
And I always assure my girlfriend when I watch football, I said, don't worry. It's just like in the moment stress. Like I'm not getting emotionally...
Hard cut to that night. Kev just staring at the ceiling.
Kick the fucking ball, dude!
I imagine your disappointment is more of just the heavy sighs. Just a... It's like, Kev, go to bed. Okay.
When that clock
and you just roll over, just...
When that clock says 0-0 and my team has failed, it is those moments where it's just like, okay, you know, thanks, ladies. you take care of us and we love you for it.
I think that, do you think that they push Billy and Steve into some of the things, in the manipulation in this movie? I think it's more that they took what they had and edited it to make something. I don't know how much. I mean, they're manipulating it, and I think they're encouraging Steve to go to, you know, Fun Spot. They're encouraging Steve to go to GDC or whatever it was.
There's
GEC or whatever.
Yeah, there's moments where there's one shot in particular. I think it's when they're talking about Fun Spot. And, like, you hear the interviewer say, like, you know, Billy Mitchell says that's the place to go play Donkey Kong. And that kind of, you can kind of see the idea get in Steve Weeby's head of, like, oh, yeah? That's where I gotta do it? And then all of a sudden they have a storyline of him going to Fun Spot, you know? So, yeah, I think they definitely... And this is nothing new. This goes on in documentaries. It goes on in journalism. There's always that invisible hand that kind of every now and then shifts the story to make it do what it wants to do.
And we're able to find that out because people on both sides of the equation have admitted that it was.
Yeah.
Can a guy be sensitive and considerate and still get some gnarly piece?
A piece of poontang, as Mr. Awesome puts it. Yeah, he can.
Yeah.
Fuck Mr. Awesome. That guy was an asshole.
And also, that also presupposes that a girl who is, you know, that you would find attractive, intrinsically wants to be like submissive in her whole life. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, maybe you want to. I mean, it's like also it's like maybe you. I mean, it's like it's not a crazy thing to say like you could have a equidistant relationship. One or both of you could be submissive or dominant sexually. You know what I mean? It really boils down human existence to a very simplistic formula that doesn't seem to really jive.
It's a very caveman mentality.
Yeah. And it's like some women kind of run the relationship, you know, and the bedroom. Sometimes one or the other, vice versa. Any combination of any of these things, right? It's like humans are more complicated than what this guy's giving credit for.
And to say it needs to be this way or no way, again, simplifies humanity to a point that's completely ridiculous.
And I hope that, and I honestly believe this. I hope that a thing like Tinder and all of its variants really remove the pickup artist from the universe, because it's like, listen, society, everybody, if you're horny, you need to hook up with someone, you just fire up this fucking app, everyone puts their fucking information into it, and blah, 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 and then we all consensually do what we want to do, right? There's no need to go to a bar and try to use these strategies and fucking be gross and watch these weird videos where you're in a cop's outfit for no reason talking about how you got robbed from your video game shit. Gross. It's gross.
That's why they're not recognizing your missile command score, Mr. Awesome.
Yeah, maybe because you're just gross.
Maybe because you're just a weirdo.
All right, we're running a little bit long. Do you got any nitpicks on this movie?
Nitpicks? Nothing really. I will say, I'll say it for the end.
I will say I don't like how this movie portrays video games as nerds and losers. But, you know, I don't love that, but it's not...
See, I just don't feel we get that. I think it's just a lens into the world.
And I don't think that might be what I'm bringing to it. I'm bringing to it.
I don't think it's passing judgment on anybody, personally.
Any particular awesome things that you want to highlight at this moment?
Again, the video Steve submits is hilarious just because the kid is there. Quit playing Donkey Kong! God, it's funny every single time. So all the cast of characters.
Those Looney Tunes.
Walter Day's videos, I think, are just charming in a very lo-fi way when he's like doing the referee signals. And illegal use of cheat code. And he's like, I wanted to be the guy who the girls are like, oh, I see you're really good at Centipede. You know?
See, that makes me sad.
I think it's fun.
All right, man. Good. Enjoy it.
And yeah, the movie is it's well paced, and it's just, for a documentary, it does not feel dry at all, which I love documentaries, but I think a lot of them can kind of be like you're being lectured to.
Yes.
This one really feels like it's a story being told.
I agree with everything you just said. However, film is a personal medium, so this speaks to my personal experience with this movie, watching it with Emily. And so my favorite moments are, cool things that happen while watching it are the following. Billy, my phone says never surrender. Emily, I hate this movie. So we get...
What were we talking about? Undue stress that men put on women?
Yeah.
My fault.
No, I don't think there's any stress. I think she was loving to hate watch this movie.
If you got something out of it, that's all that matters.
So then when he gets to the kill screen, you know, it says elapsed time 2 hours 30 minutes, and I go, he did it in 2 hours and 30 minutes. Like, I'm like, damn, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Emily, wife and child not pictured. So Steve is playing, and I think he is at one point where he's distracted. And he's dying early in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? You can't concentrate if your kids aren't sitting behind you, little Willie sitting behind you, and you ignore him. I hate these people. They're assholes. And then the last one is like Steve, after I think he leaves GameSpot, and he's basically not going to get anything. And they're doing a confessional. They show him crying. There's no interview though, right? It's just someone else talking.
Yeah.
So Steve's crying. Emily, he needs to grow some balls. So, watching this, made better with the running commentary.
Yeah, it's kind of like your Gremlins experience.
It was like the inverse where Gremlins, you could tell that she would if she wanted to turn it off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then with this one, it is similar though. But this one, I think she was just like, these fucking assholes.
I mean, and that to me is a valid reaction to this movie.
Yeah.
It's like for a certain group of people, she's like the daughter who.
She is like a daughter who's like, some people say it's important. I don't see why.
and she's like, some people really ruin their lives to get into the Guinness Book of World Records. Girl is spreading some truth there.
All right, so before we wrap this up, if they ever made this into, usually we talk about sequel pitches and things like that. There's not going to be a sequel in this movie.
Yep.
But if they were to adapt it into a actual movie, do you have a cast of characters that you would like to see play these characters?
I think Josh Hutcherson could be Steve Wiebe.
Uh-huh.
Edward Norton as Billy Mitchell.
Oh, Edward Norton. Very good. Very good. So
I see Edward Norton's eyes in Billy Mitchell's eyes. Just that very calculated, cold stare.
Interesting.
I think he can pull it off. Get a wig and a beard on Edward Norton.
Interesting.
Secondary, if Edward Norton's not available, Gary Oldman. Yeah.
I think Gary Oldman would make a better Walter Day.
Yeah, I think he'd be a good pick.
So I got some picks here too, so let's quickly go through this. Steve, Idris Elba. Because he's the best. The wife, Kate Winslet, obviously. Billy, Ryan Reynolds.
Interesting.
Think about Ryan Reynolds with that hair and that beard. I think you could see it.
I think he could pull it off.
I think you can see it. Walter Day, Michael Keaton.
That's a good pick.
The guy who checks the tape, Robert Minzrak.
Yeah.
Paul Dano.
Yeah, that'd be a good
It's
one.
a little on the nose, but you see what I'm going with here. Roy Schilt, the pickup artist, Jared Leto. Natch. Doris, Betty White. Come on.
Of course.
Steve Sanders, who's Billy's best bud. Greg Henry. He's a character actor who just looks exactly like him.
All right.
He was on the Gilmore Girls as Logan's father. Shout out, Gilmore Girls.
All right.
And then Brian Kuh, Skinny Jonah Hill.
It's a good cast.
And if anyone here can't be in, I will gladly substitute Stanley Tucci in for any role.
Stanley Tucci is Billy Mitchell.
And Stanley Tucci is Billy Mitchell. Stanley Mitchell is Walter Day. Stanley Tucci is fucking good in everything.
He really is.
It's amazing how the stink is never on him.
No, he's never the problem in any movie.
Transformers 4, terrible movie. Absolutely garbage. Stanley Tucci, brilliant.
Even in Burlesque and The Lovely Bones, Stanley Tucci.
Lovely Bones, garbage. Stanley Tucci, fan-fucking-tastic.
Nominated for an Oscar.
Deservedly so. And that movie was terrible. Stanley Tucci in Devil's Wears Prada. That movie I kind of like. Stanley Tucci, I love.
Yep.
So, it is what it is.
Keep on trucking, Stanley Tucci.
In the end, do you like this movie? Can you recommend it?
Yes, I like this film quite a bit. It's always entertaining to watch. I always look forward to watching it when I show it to new people, do it for a podcast. And yeah, I highly recommend it.
I think it's fun. I think I'm a little bit softer on you knowing that it's faked. You know what I mean? I think you should know that. If you know that, listen, just imagine this is like a found footage movie. You know what I mean? Then it's kind of a more enjoyable thing to me because I think it is overly faked. You know what I mean? I think they really pushed the limit of what's acceptable to be faked. You know what I mean? But overall, in terms of storytelling, it is greatly told storytelling. You know what I mean? And the underdog story and a guy's trying to find meanings in things, and it's a wacky one. It's wacky.
And Seth Gordon in charge of the Baywatch movie.
Yeah. He has moved on to feature film directing.
He has.
I think it's a better fit than documentaries for him.
Yeah, he did Four Christmases, Horrible Bosses,
He produced some TV. He produced a lot of TV.
Yeah, and then he's got the R-rated Baywatch movie coming up.
It's R-rated, huh?
They're saying it's gonna be an R-rated comedy.
I can see that. And Dwayne, my boy Dwayne.
Your boy The Rock is in it.
Dwayne.
My girl Alexandra Daddario is in it.
Who's she?
Not the Pamela Anderson character. I don't remember, but I'll watch her in anything. So.
That's great.
Hi, Alexandra.
All right, so that's it for us. Kev, you wrote this episode. And you hosted it. Mr. Jibber Jabber, Kev, music, Jeff Russell. See you next time, guys. Game over, man. Game over.
Don't stand under the monkey.